Was there ever a time when you wanted to check one thing on your phone, but found yourself scrolling mindlessly 40 minutes later? For me, this was the latter half of 2021. I felt trapped in my own cycle of school, homework, and almost no sleep. I'd finish a task not because of the knowledge I gained at the moment, but because of the break I promised myself after. I wasn't happy because all I wanted to do was sit on my phone and mindlessly scroll through social media. See, this all has to do with a chemical called dopamine. What do you picture in your mind when I say this word? Some of y'all, I'm guessing, may think of drugs or social media, which are both said to increase levels of dopamine. But let's talk about something that decreases levels of dopamine. Let's put the spotlight on Parkinson's disease. 2 years ago, my grandfather was diagnosed with Parkinson's. He initially went to the doctor because he was having trouble changing directions while moving. Towards the end of 2021, it got worse. His speech started slurring, and he needed help doing the tiniest of things, like getting up from a chair. If you're familiar with Parkinson's, you know that there is no cure. And my grandfather lives all the way in India, which is very far away, so I barely get to see him. But I found that researching the disease made me feel a lot closer to him, understanding how and why it was affecting him, and also learning some really relevant and impactful science along the way. Let me share it with you. Our bodies are made of trillions of cells, each with their own specified function. The cells in the brain are called neurons. And in order for these neurons to communicate with each other, they send little chemical signals to each other called neurotransmitters. Dopamine is a type of neurotransmitter used by these neurons to communicate. It is integral to everyday life and function, and when released, can also leave us feeling happier. And Parkinson's is a disease that mainly affects older people. And on the outside, it often just looks like hand tremors or slow movement, but it gets much more complicated inside. The substantia nigra is a tiny part of the brain that produces dopamine. And with people with Parkinson's, inside this substantia nigra, it's full of chaos. There's mutated protein spreading and inhibiting these neurons from producing the dopamine they need to survive. Scientists hypothesize that as these mutated proteins spread, Parkinson's gets worse. And this might sound weird, but I used to think dopamine was such a terrible thing. And I think it's just because I didn't truly know the real meaning of the real role it had in everyday life. But I just heard all these things, especially about our younger generation, how we're getting too much and it's causing all these bad things like addiction. I've heard of dopamine detoxes, which recommend taking a break from outside sources. So it really never occurred to me that this chemical was so integral to life itself. Realizing this was a pivotal moment in my life because it's when I fully realized how balance plays a role in everything. This moment is when I truly understood that I could change the way I lived just by changing my mindset. So, after realizing this, the whole mindlessly scrolling through social media thing got really old really fast. January was coming along, and honestly, I was so excited for 2022. On New Year's Eve, I decided for the entire month of January, and maybe even more, I was going to delete all social media. New year, new me, right? I was finally going to take initiative in being the best that I could be. And guess what? It worked so well. I started to wake up excited for school, excited for the new day, and to interact with my teachers and classmates and make the best of my day every day. The benefits this little change had on the way I thought and what my day-to-day life looked like were substantial. For me, all it took was a little self-motivation to take action. It was a problem I needed to solve. I was spending way too much time scrolling through social media. I knew I was better than that and made a promise to myself. Now, some of y'all may be thinking, that if social media produces dopamine and people with Parkinson's lack it, can't they just go on social media or something? Unfortunately, it isn't that simple. See, people with Parkinson's don't have these neurons necessary to produce dopamine in the first place. Remember, the substantia nigra is very chaotic, and mutated proteins are inhibiting these neurons from producing dopamine. So something that typically produces dopamine, like social media, really has no effect on people with Parkinson's. Social media and Parkinson's are two extremes on a dopamine level spectrum. You have Parkinson's, which is just struggling to produce the normal amount of dopamine needed to live. And then there's social media, which is designed to produce the most dopamine possible with little to no work on your part. This is such an awesome metaphor for life because you can take something really good and necessary and make it harmful just by overusing it. I encourage you to do the same thing that I did with social media with anything you want in life. Because in the end, a balance in the brain is a balance in life. Thank you.